Chances are, if you've ever used a Windows PC, you've probably ignored the Microsoft Store. It seems pretty simple, right? It's just a place to get apps. But you know that little shopping bag icon? It has a wild story behind it. A real roller coaster of massive ambition, spectacular public failure, and a complete reinvention that is still playing out today.
So that's really the big question we're going to tackle. How did Microsoft's own App Store get so bad that it almost completely failed? For years, it was just plagued with problems. And we're going to dig into exactly what went wrong and how Microsoft is trying to climb its way back.
Our story really kicks off back in 2011. Microsoft is getting ready to launch Windows 8, and this isn't just some minor update. No, this is a massive, radical bet on the future of computing. It's all designed for this new world of tablets and touchscreens, and right at the heart of this whole new vision was something completely new for Windows, its very own App Store.
Now, this wasn't a store for the kind of programs we were all used to. It was built for a brand new type of software they called Metro-style apps. The key word here is sandboxed. Think of it like this. Each app runs in its own little secure bubble, totally walled off from the rest of your system. They were supposed to be super safe, super reliable, and every single one was curated and approved by Microsoft.
So what Microsoft was doing here really was building a walled garden. You've heard that term before, right? Just like what Apple did with their App Store. The strategy was pretty simple. If you wanted one of these new touch-friendly, secure apps, you had to get it from the Windows Store. And for Windows, a platform that was famous for being wide open, this was a huge and honestly a really controversial change. Yeah, but that clean, simple vision, it fell apart, like almost immediately. The store just stumbled right into this massive identity crisis, and in the process, it devolved into this confusing mess for pretty much everyone involved. So by the time Windows 10 rolled around, Microsoft had a new problem, one they'd made for themselves. They had way too many stores. There was one for music, another for games, one for phone apps. So their solution, just shove them all together into one single Microsoft store. On paper, it looked like this great unified vision. In reality, this was just the beginning of the chaos. The store basically became a revolving door for content. And this is where things got really bad for users. First, they got rid of music sales. Okay. But then they shut down the ebook section, and this caused a massive uproar. Why? Because of how digital rights work. When the service went down, people lost access to books they had actually paid for. They just vanished from their libraries. And now, the same thing's happening with movies and TV. I mean, can you imagine? This just completely destroyed user trust. Why would you ever buy anything from a store if they could just decide to take it away from you years later? So you've got all this chaos happening on the inside. It's really no surprise that on the outside, both users and developers were just done. They were fed up. The store just wasn't a place people wanted to go. Look, it's one thing for users on the internet to complain, but you know you've got a serious problem when the criticism is coming from the top, from inside your own house. This wasn't some random forum post. This was Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, publicly admitting their own store was, well, that it sucks. So why did it suck? Well, where do we even begin? The problems were just everywhere. For starters, you couldn't even find the big popular apps you were actually looking for. And what you could find was often just a swamp of low-quality knockoffs and, believe it or not, sometimes even malware. On top of all that, the store itself was just fundamentally broken. Downloads would fail for no reason, updates wouldn't install properly, and for developers, the rules were so strict and limiting that most of them just said forget it and didn't even bother. And if all of that wasn't enough, this was the real deal breaker for so many developers. Microsoft was taking a 30% cut of every single sale. Think about it. If you're a developer, you could just sell your software on your own website and keep 100% of the money. Why would you go through all that hassle just to give Microsoft a huge chunk of your revenue? It just didn't make sense. So after years and years of just failing, Microsoft knew they had to do something drastic. And with the launch of Windows 11, they didn't just give the store a fresh coat of paint. No, they completely rebooted its entire philosophy from the ground up. And wow, were the changes dramatic. Just look at this. That 30% revenue cut for apps slashed to just 12%. Remember how developers had to use Microsoft's payment system? Now they could bring their own and keep 100% of the money. Those super strict rules about what kind of apps you could submit, gone. Any app framework is now welcome. And maybe the most shocking move of all,
They went from a closed ecosystem to one that actually allows competing app stores to be listed right inside their own store. That's a total 180.
So, what does all this open talk actually mean for you and me, the everyday user? Well, mainly, it means a lot more choice. You can now find all those classic desktop programs that you're used to right in the store. It's also become a home for modern web apps and even Android apps, thanks to a cool integration with the Amazon App Store. The goal here is pretty clear. They want to finally make the store a useful, central place to get all your software, not just some tiny, hand-picked selection. But really, of all the changes they made, this one probably sent the loudest message, especially to developers. Slashing their take from 30% all the way down to 12% was like a giant olive branch. It was Microsoft basically saying, hey, we get it, we messed up. We are finally serious about making this a place where you can actually build a business and succeed. And that brings us pretty much up to today. The Microsoft Store has been on this incredible journey, right? It's gone from this failed, super restrictive experiment to a new, much more promising, and fundamentally open platform. I mean, the whole story is really a perfect example of going from one extreme to the complete opposite. What started out as this lockdown, walled garden trying to be like Apple has now become an open marketplace that finally gets what made Windows so popular in the first place: flexibility and choice. But here's the big question, right? After a whole decade of mistakes, missteps, and a really damaged reputation, is this new open strategy going to be enough? Is it enough to get people to actually care, to overcome all that apathy, and finally make the Microsoft Store a place people want to go instead of just an icon they ignore? Well, I guess only time will tell.